Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi LiveNoding. In this episode, I'm going to do kind of like an improv of a lot of concepts that we have learned so far. I'll be using Sverchok to do this. So basically, maybe at this point you have to probably understand that you can easily create like duplicates of objects. And let's say someone asks you, okay, can you make me like a bunch of circles with random colors? That's actually already pretty easy. Can you make the circles to follow the grease pencils? Like, can you put the circles into grease pencil positions? That's also pretty easy to do, right? um, let's say, so we are no longer creating objects from here. If we are using nodes, just jump into Sverchok, and then let's say, let's just use something like a circle, and we're gonna output it as a viewer vmesh. So it's gonna be a real object in the 3D scene, something like that. So that's a real object. I'll also gonna display the outliner. You can see alpha 0 there. And for this example, right away I will create a material for this guy and just turn on the object color. And for this one, I'll just make it shadeless. With object color turned on, you can easily give these objects a color, any color, and then you can actually see it in the 3D view. And we can control that using Sverchok. Okay, I'm gonna save this real quick. So this is just like an improv of a lot of things. So with this object color, we can colorize it inside Sverchok using the set object ID set. Plug this object in there, and they are still connected. You can give it a color. So color in, and you need to turn on alpha RGBA. Remember, it's actually understand the alpha channel as well. So that's actually kind of transparent. Okay, keep it simple for now. So that's a single object, right? You can still control how this objects it looks like. Like, you can turn the circle into triangle, for example. And if you want to have plenty of these objects, you can use something like random vector. Maybe create like 30 of them, plug into the matrix, and you have 30 objects. But remember, with the coloring, we are using Sverchok to do that as well. And each object needs to have the same material. So let's assign the material, and we are good. So now every object can be controlled using this single color. Or if you want to have like multiple color, you can also simply just use like random number, float between 0 and 1, plug into the RGB, for example. If I zero out the green and the blue color, we get variation of red color between 0 and 1. Yeah, so that's pretty easy to understand. So instead of random, you can also have things like a grid, for example. Grid. You have hexagonal grid. You have other grid. I'm just gonna use plain MK3. This is MK2. Plug this into the matrix, and you can have as many if you want. You can spread them. And this is 7 by 7. Let's make it. This is 8 by 8. 64 objects. What else we can do here? We can randomize the color. Yes. You can randomize the RGB as well. So something like, for example, you can have it like just random grayscale like this, or you can randomize the seed for the red, the green, and the blue, and you have this very interesting variation of color. If you want to make it more blue, you can do it like this, just increasing the low. Yeah, a lot of things that's becoming very easy. Remember that these objects are all like, each one of these objects are single objects. Be careful with that. If you have like 1,000, it start to slow down. The thing with Blender is that if you have like a lot of objects, it's better to merge them into a single mesh. And when you are dealing with a single mesh, it's if you want to colorize it differently, you need to use something like perfect text color or just like a UV painting. Anyway, we're not gonna do that for now. I'll show you a quick trick. Let's say if you are using a single color like this, you can also you can use something like vector noise, for example. We know that this is the grid position of each object. We can plug this guy in there and use a scalar value, and then plug the scalar into this guy, and you have some kind of noise coloring happening, something like that. Let's say maybe just the red, see? And if you use like vector move, vector in here, and if you move the Z, you can see you can have really nice kind of flickering, very smooth flickering. You often see this kind of effects everywhere actually. So that's a quick little trick. Back to random number, you can also use the HSV, something like that. Randomize the seed. With HSV, of course, you are dealing with a hue, saturation, and value, and you have different color. Okay, that's pretty clear, pretty simple. Now let's deal with the transformation for each object with the matrix here. So far we are only plugging like a positional value for each object into the matrix, but you can also kind of rotate it and things like that. If we use matrix in, and you can randomize the scale, you can rotate it randomly. By default the rotation is 0, 0, 1, which is the z-axis. That means if you plug in like a random number generator into this guy, value between 0 and 360, and you should get like random value for each object like that, and you still have control for each object, of course. So that's very cool. Now let's do something, one more thing. Let's say if we know that we can use a grease pencil now. So if you are like drawing like a spiraling thing like this, you can easily use this control spacebar, type in GP for grease pencil, and we have this guy. Simply use the active frame of grease pencil, and we have this nice resampling for the grease pencil. So we can place all these triangles into these grease pencil points. Very, very easy. So that's the grease pencil with the points and edge. If we just plug this guy into the locations, see the triangles will stick to this guy. And with the rotations, let me tidy up this thing a little bit. With the rotations, we can have it random, of course, but with this kind of thing, it's nice to have it as to follow a long path, so we can enable the cubic and plug the tangent into the rotations. And I think the only problem is that we need to change the rotation to maybe 100. Okay, seems to be working good. And the thing with grease pencil, of course, you can always make any kind of pattern. It will update, so that's pretty handy. Blender is cool, and you can randomize the scale and whatever. This is just a triangle. Of course, you can use anything. You know, you can turn this guy back into circle. You can randomize the scale, random number generator, float, and we have 64 of them. Actually, we have probably more than it. We have 61. Okay, plug this into the scale. It's gonna give error because it's expecting a vector. So 1, 2, 3. Plug into this guy. So this is, yeah, seems to be working. You can randomize it. And still working. And let's get try also one more thing. Instead of circle, we can replace it with any kind of mesh. So let's say if I shift drag there and then cut it, Control C, Control and drag on the line. Now I just put something like ring, for example. Plug that in and plug this in. You're gonna get like a ring to follow the grease pencil. Yeah, that's a lot of things you can do already. Of course, you're not limited to all those. You can also use icosphere. Any kind of 3D generator will work. And yeah, there you go. You have it. I think that's very cool that you can do this pretty easily. It's becoming very fluent kind of procedural node workflow inside Blender. If you use this for the first time, maybe you might be like a little bit surprised, but after a while, this is actually very easy to think about it. Much easier than having to generate this by using Python script or manually. It's very tedious. Python scripts, if you're really good with Pythons, this is also really possible to do. That's like another level. Once you're like on that level, you will have like bunch of script library that you can call and use. That's also something very interesting to pursue, I guess. But for most people, I think nodes is very easy to learn and to use. And the nice thing about this is that you can just save this node tree and then give it to everyone to learn and to use. So I can just export it to GIS and then you can load it. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's a lot of concepts. I just put it together into this single video. It's pretty basic, but still pretty useful and fun to do every now and then. It's like exercise for me. So just if you pipe in any kind of objects into viewer bmesh and then you can pipe any transformation values, you can end up with something like this. In this case, it's grease pencil, and it's duplicating all these objects. You're gonna end up with a lot of objects though. Be careful with this. If you have like if you start dealing with 10,000, 100,000, or even like millions of objects, start thinking about particles and maybe dupli and instancing in Blender is interesting. I found until Blender has its own particle node system, maybe there's always like a way or like a workaround. Things like it's like limitation, but not really, because you can achieve quite complexity using Blender instancing. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. It's exploration of Sverchok add-on in Blender, like the procedural way to generate duplication of objects, and this is how you might want to approach it. Yeah, thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video.